Hey, what is up, my YouTubian subscribers? Secure here to talk about Penny Paulandina and her death in Volume 8 versus the deaths we got in Volume 3 and why Volume 3 worked and Volume 8 didn't work. And so, like, comment down below on with the show. Basically, yeah, Penny gets spiked at the end of Volume 8 by Cinder Fall's hand, Grim Hand, and then gets Mercy killed by Jean. So why didn't that work? Well, it didn't work because I feel like it was just simply a shock value kill, essentially. Like Penny had already accomplished everything what the maidens had been essentially in every story arc the maidens do, which is open the vault and get the relic. With and so there was no need for a maiden transfer of power to happen. Essentially, meta narratively wise, there might be with Winter being the Weiss's representative in the maidens, and if the theory that the Team RWBY does get the maiden powers eventually once Ruby acts as fucking Cinderfall, and yeah, so it makes sense meta narratively that they needed to give her the give Winter the maiden powers to represent Weiss in the maidens of this generation, but that doesn't. It needs to. There needs to be more to a major character death than meta narrative. Okay, with Penny dying in Volume 3 and Pierre dying in Volume 3, we got not just a meta narrative with Pyrrha and her relic representing choice, and Pyrrha's whole story arc in that volume representing indecision or a lack of making a choice, and later, well, yeah. So meta narratively, it made sense that Pyrrha would die in that volume. Penny dying meta narratively was the loss of innocence, the death of innocence. Moving forward, RWBY would be a darker, more mature show. So meta narratively, but it also moved the plot forward narratively. It got RWBY and Juniper out of Beacon with Pyrrha's death, and it signified a shifting dynamic when Penny died. She not just like we get the Cinderfall monologue following Penny's death, which moved the plot forward. It opened questions about Ozma. It opened questions about the good guys and who's good, who's bad. It moved the fall of Beacon forward significantly. So yeah, her death was good in Volume 3. It wasn't. I personally, I feel like the her death in Volume 8 was a lot better written. I think Winter's voice actress, Penny's voice actress, the animation, it was all better in Volume 8. But it's evidence that something can look good, but not necessarily be okay. Okay. Now let's get back to her death in Volume 8. What did her death do? It moved Winter into a position where she represents Weiss in this generation of maidens, but Winter is essentially relegated now to being a big gun. There's no way Winter will ever lose to Cinder. We know that, especially because she's the older, a better huntress, and now you give her maiden powers. There's no version of that fight. Especially once Winter gets her maiden powers under control and learns how to utilize them in more creative ways. Winter doesn't lose that fight ever. So they've pretty much locked the Winter Maiden powers behind Winter Schnee and her ability to defend them from Cinder. And in the same way that they did with Raven, Raven doesn't lose that fight ever until she gets too old to defend herself. And even then, we saw with Freya that an old maiden can overpower a young maiden just based off of experience alone and just raw power in the maiden abilities. So there's no version of RWBY I can see where the Spring Maiden powers or the Winter Maiden powers shift over. Okay, moving on to what's more important though. It was an earned death. It was earned victories for the bad guys in Volume 3. Volume 3 was all about the bad guys winning. They had been playing their cards correctly all through Volume 1 and 2, and then executed on their plan in Volume 3 in a way that felt organic, it felt natural, and it felt earned. Volume eight's victory for the bad guys did not feel organic, didn't feel natural, didn't feel earned. It just felt like the good guys were being dumb, essentially. Let's start with the narrative. Yang getting clipped and thrown off the bridges and into the abyss. It started then. Team Ruby's fall was what caused Penny to die, so we need to talk about that. Yang and Neo both didn't act in ways that were natural for their characters. Yang did not attack Neo or defend herself, and she was one shotted. Okay, Yang is known for her aggression, she's known for her fighting talent, and she's known for her durability. This is a woman who got knocked through a pillar. This is a woman who's been spiked into the atmosphere by Nora and then dropped down, and her aura is still there. There's no need. And Neo herself is not known as a powerhouse. She's a very skilled fighter, but her fighting style is based almost solely on movement, on redirecting movement, on death by a thousand cuts type of situations where she can outmaneuver you and then make you hurt yourself. So her one shotting one of the most durable characters in the show doesn't make sense. Let's keep going. Let's assume Neo does one shot Yang, throw her off into the abyss. You now have all three of Team RWBY. They can all do something to stop Yang's fall. Ruby's can fly. Ruby's unassisted flight, thanks to I believe it was either chapter 12 or chapter 13, when she flies Team RWBY and Penny up into the vault via the bottom of Atlas. We know that's at least 10 seconds of falling. That's not counting the slow motion falling that while Oscar's looking at Ironwood as he's falling. We know he falls for about 15 to 20 seconds into that hole. So that means she's flying at least 50 feet or more unassisted straight up. So RWBY could have saved her. I mean, Weiss has like gravity glyphs, platform glyphs, summons. She could have saved her. Um, Blake could have used her clones to create a freaking platform for her to extend her freaking reach. Like ice clone on the ledge gives her that extra couple of feet to grab Yang. And then Yang herself, she gets knocked unconscious by Neapolitan, a woman who's not known for that level of power to cut through an aura, plus knock the person out in one shot. Yang's gauntlets are known for flinging her, so she could have used the Ember Silica to knock herself back up to grab Blake's weapon. Like there were plenty of ways to prevent that fall. Okay, is my main point. Again, we get to Ruby and Blake falling. Again, unassisted flight. RWBY had plenty of time to recover from getting blasted in the back by Cinder. It made no sense that she wouldn't just fly them up onto one of the bridges. If she thinks they're gonna die, that would have given them a chance, especially without Neo there, to defend Penny and help fight Cinder. Okay, so we have all of Team RWBY. Weiss is the only one who needs to take the fall. Her aura was smashed, and she had just taken an explosion to the legs by Cinder. Like she's the only one who doesn't have a way to stop herself from falling. And John, obviously, John falls because he's too slow. But yeah, they all had a chance to fall, so no, to prevent their falls. That's my point. So leading up to Penny's death, they weren't earned. Her death came in an unnatural way, starting with Yang, but ending with RWBY and Blake getting thrown into the abyss. Is my point. We then get to Ironwood, them leaving his weapon by his cell. I know they couldn't tell that there was no way to know that Ironwood would get out of his cell, but you don't leave a weapon next to an enemy cell. Okay, simple as that. They even Batman Arkham Asylum, they hide the weapons in a vault. So it didn't make sense to me. Ironwood's actions following his aura being broken, therefore his semblance metal being broken. We don't. It just didn't make sense to me. They don't justify Ironwood continues his actions, especially with everyone leaving Mantle and leaving Atlas. His continued actions make very, very little sense. It pretty much, and then Winter Schnee. We have her go to the vault instead of entering through one of the portals that would have been created by Juniper's presence. She doesn't meet with Team RWBY and Penny in the world between worlds, or whatever we want to call that little area that Juniper and RWBY go to first after after using the Relic of Creation, so she doesn't go there immediately, which would have increased their fighting potential against Cinderfall significantly immediately. Like, again, stupid decision. She fights Ironwood. She goes and fights Ironwood in the vault, which, again, going back to the Ironwood mistake, it makes it feel like they were just holding Winter back because they knew if Winter was helping Team RWBY, there would be almost no reason for Cinder to even get the relic, let alone kill Penny. And I believe that's the main reason people aren't accepting this death. I'm sure there are gonna be people who flat out just liked Penny a lot and didn't want her to die, who feel like giving her the human body just to die was kind of a slap in the face. There are going to be people like that. But generally speaking, I think it has to do with how satisfying the ending turned out to be. The holes you can poke into it with just looking at the information we were given. This isn't me trying to hate on the ending. I actually liked Volume 8. I thought Volume 8 was a significant step up from Volume 7, and I think it's probably either the best volume of RWBY by a significant margin, or Volume 3 and Volume 4 and Volume 7 can all, just in that, those three volumes all hold a significant place in my heart. I think those three volumes were all around the same. If not, Volume 8 is just flat out better. Like, the fact is, there's one moment I question, and that's when the Hound looks at Penny and doesn't go straight for her. I know he's blind, but my point is, there's not very many holes you can poke in Volume 8. Whereas with other volumes, Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7, you can poke a lot of holes into the narrative of the show once you start to think about it. Yeah, so end of the day, I feel like that's where a lot of people are coming from, and maybe they don't understand it. Maybe they don't get that the nature of the death was just unsatisfying because the actions the characters took that led up to that death, didn't make sense to them on like a subconscious level. But me thinking about it, that's why I don't like that death. And this is coming from someone who actually didn't like Penny. I thought her as the maiden kind of weakened the idea that what is she? Is she human? Is she a robot? Is she an AI? I think those questions that were asked about Penny were confirmed to be she's human. She's a living sentient being when she became a maiden. And then made extra true when she got the human body. Um anyways, yeah, I didn't like Penny. I thought her death was well written. I thought it was well voice acted. It was well animated. That final scene when she tells Winter that there's going to be a part of her in Winter no matter what happens, it all works. But at the same time, it doesn't, because of the events leading up to it were written in such a way that it hurt her eventual sacrifice. In the same way, you can't say with Pyrrha's death, her death was avoidable only if you ignore her character. Pyrrha's death was only avoidable if you say, okay, Pyrrha is not the character we knew. She's gonna avoid that final confrontation with Cinder. She's not gonna feel any regret about not taking the maiden powers when first given to her. You have to ignore a lot of things in order for that to make sense. For Pyrrha to not attack Cinder, for Pyrrha to avoid dying. Whereas you can't say that with Penny. Anyways, I hope this sheds some light onto why people aren't liking Penny's death. I'm one of them. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was weak. Like, comment down below. Secured signing off.